like to give all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem Rakakwadash, and double honors to the apostles, elders, and bishops of Great Millstone. Today we'll be mainly covering Daniel verses 7 through 9. But before we get to those, quick recap. In Daniel 11 and verse 1, also I, in the first year of Darius the Mede, even I, stood to confirm and to strengthen him. Now Darius the Mede is historically known as Astyages, and he was the grandfather of Cyrus the Great, the Persian, on his mother's side. And now will I show thee the truth. Behold, there shall stand up yet 3 kings in Persia, and the fourth shall be far richer than they all. And by his strength, through his riches, he shall stir up all against the realm of Grecia. Now, during this time, the king was already Cyrus the Great. So these kings were ones that were to come after him, which started, they had 3 kings in Persia. That started with Cambyses II, then Bardia, and then Darius the Great, which is not to be confused with Darius the Mede. One was a Mede and one was a Persian. And the fourth shall be far richer than they all, and by his strength through his riches he shall stir up all against the realm of Grecia. And that fourth king was Xerxes I, which was the son of Darius the Great. Daniel 11 verse 3, and a mighty king shall stand up, that shall rule with great dominion, and do according to his will. And this king was Alexander the Great, or Alexander the Greek. Daniel 11 verse 4, and when he shall stand up, meaning Alexander would be at the height of his power, his kingdom shall be broken. Right? Because after he died, you had the civil wars. And it shall be divided toward the 4 winds of heaven, going into the 4 areas that his 4 generals ultimately ended up ruling after the end of those civil wars. And not to his posterity, nor according to his dominion which he ruled, because it says not to his posterity, because what does posterity mean? It mean like, their children or their descendants. And it says not to Alexander's posterity, because his kingdom didn't go to his children or his descendants or his offspring. It went to his generals. Nor according to his dominion in which he ruled, right? Because his generals, they ruled how they saw fit. Alexander, there was ways and things that he wanted, or ways that he wanted things to be done. But his generals didn't, like it says, they ruled not according to his dominion, because they did things how they wanted things to be done, not according to how Alexander wanted things to be done. For his kingdom shall be plucked up, even for others beside those. And the king of the south shall be strong, and one of his princes, and he shall be strong above him, and have dominion. His dominion shall be a great dominion. Now, this king of the south is going into the generals, those 4 generals, and the king of the south was Ptolemy the first Soter, and one of his princes, and he shall be strong above him, and have dominion, and his dominion shall be a great dominion. Now that one of his princes of Ptolemy's is speaking about Seleucus I Nicator, which was another of those 4 generals. And it says that he was one of Ptolemy's princes, because princes in this verse is speaking like in a military sense, meaning commander or general or admiral. And Seleucus was a commander of one of Ptolemy's naval fleets. And it says he shall be strong above him and have dominion, and his dominion shall be a great dominion. And it says talking about Seleucus, because out of the 4 generals of Alexander's with all his territory, Seleucus had the largest portion. And in the end of years, they shall join themselves together. For the king's daughter of the south shall come to the king of the north to make an agreement. But she shall not retain the power of the arm, neither shall he stand, nor his arm, but she shall be given up, and they that brought her, and he that begot her, and he that strengthened her in these times. Now, the king of the north and the king of the south in verse 6 is different from verse 5, because this is, years later on down the line. So the king of the south now in this time is Ptolemy the second Philadelphus, and the king of the north is Antiochus the second Theos. And verse 6 is going into that end of the second Syrian war, where they have an agreement where Ptolemy's daughter is married to Antiochus II. And that agreement that they have was basically like a peace treaty where her daughter would become the rightful heir or the king to, that empire. But what happened was Antiochus leaves Berenice for his previous wife, which, it causes conflicts and causes that agreement to fail, which leads to Berenice and her son being killed, which was like the catalyst for the third Syrian war to kick off, because her brother, who was coming to help her put her son on the throne, he comes and sees that his sister and her nephew have been killed, which is, which has him to declare war on Seleucus II, which was the son of Antiochus' previous wife, who was now the new king of the north, or ruler of that Seleucid empire. Now on to verse 7. But out of a branch of her roots shall one stand up in his estate, which is going into one of Berenice's relatives, her brother Ptolemy the third Euergetes, who came to help his sister put her son on the throne, but finds out that they've both been killed. Which shall come with an army, and shall enter into the fortress of the king of the north. Right, so he came to the Seleucid territory, and shall deal against them, and shall prevail. And this was that third Syrian war, also known as the Laodicean War. So now let's read more on Ptolemy the third Euergetes. Ptolemy the third Euergetes, who is now currently, in this time of Daniel 11:7, the king of the south. Ptolemy the third Euergetes, Ptolemy the benefactor, was the third pharaoh of the Ptolemaic dynasty in Egypt from 246 to 222 BC. And remember, the first being Ptolemy the first Soter, and the second being Ptolemy the second Philadelphus. Then now we have the third, Ptolemy the third Euergetes. The Ptolemaic kingdom reached the height of its military and economic power during his kingship, as initiated by his father, Ptolemy the second Philadelphus. Ptolemy III was the eldest son of Ptolemy II and Arsinoe I. When Ptolemy III was young, his mother was disgraced and he was removed from the succession. He was restored as heir to the throne in the late 250s BC and succeeded his father as king without issue in 246 BC. On his succession, Ptolemy III married Berenice II, not to be confused with Berenice I, which was his sister. They were two different people. Ptolemy III married Berenice II, reigning queen of Cyrenaica, thereby bringing her territory into the Ptolemaic realm. In the Third Syrian War, 246 to 241 BC, Ptolemy III invaded the Seleucid Empire and won a near total victory, which is what we read back here in Daniel 11:7, where it says, which shall come with an army and shall enter into the fortress of the king of the north and shall deal against them and shall prevail. What does the wiki say? Ptolemy III invaded the Seleucid Empire and won a near total victory because he won the war against the Seleucids. And at the time, the king he went up against was Seleucus II Callinicus. But was forced to abandon the campaign as a result of an uprising in Egypt. So what was going on in Egypt? What was going on in Egypt is you had Edomites who were ruling over native Egyptians. And why was this? Well, because Alexander, he conquered these areas, and then later on down the line, the Ptolemaic Empire is now above Egypt. And so you have Edomites, like I said, you have Edomites ruling over the native Egyptians. And those natives of the conquered land are now subject to conquerors. And when you have no peace between the conqueror or the ruler, it gives birth to uprisings and rebellions. So Ptolemy II, he had to abandon it. Ptolemy III, Salakia. Ptolemy III had to abandon his campaign because those native Egyptians were uprising. In the aftermath of this rebellion, Ptolemy forged a closer bond with the Egyptian priestly elite, which was codified in the Canopus Decree of the 238 BC and set a trend for Ptolemaic power in Egypt for the rest of the dynasty. In the Aegean, Ptolemy III suffered a major setback when his fleet was defeated by the Antigonids at the Battle of Andros around 246 BC. So here, the Aegean, which is this body of water between, Macedon, Greece, and west of Anatolia or Asia Minor. It was that body of water, and there were islands there, which Ptolemy had control over. But as we just read, he was, they were defeated there, which he lost islands there, or area there, by to the Antigonids, to an Antigonus II Gonatas, who teamed up with Ptolemy. Not with Ptolemy, but with Seleucus. But he continued to offer financial support to their opponents in mainland Greece for the rest of his reign. At his death, Ptolemy III was succeeded by his eldest son, Ptolemy IV, which was Ptolemy IV Philopator. Okay, so now let's read more about that Third Syrian War, which is, what's being spoken about in Daniel 11 and 7. Third Syrian War. The Third Syrian War, 246 to 241 BC. Also known as the Laodicean War. The Third Syrian War began with one of the many succession crises that plagued the Hellenistic states. Antiochus II left two ambitious mothers, his repudiated wife Laodice, which the war was named after her, the Laodicean War, and Ptolemy II's daughter Berenice Sira in a competition to put their respective sons on the throne. Laodice claimed that Antiochus had named her son heir while on his deathbed, but Berenice argued that her newly born son was the legitimate heir. Berenice asked her brother Ptolemy III, the new Ptolemaic king, to come to Antioch and help place her son on the throne. When Ptolemy arrived, Berenice and her child had been assassinated, and this is what's being spoken about in Daniel 11 and 6. The agreement that was made through the marriage of Berenice Sira and Antiochus II, where her son would be rightful heir. Then Antiochus dies, and Berenice and Laodice, they basically fight over whose son is the rightful heir, and Laodice has Berenice and her son killed, which Ptolemy III finds out and ultimately declares war. Ptolemy declared war on Laodice's newly crowned son, Seleucus II. And we read here in Daniel 11 and 7, what? But out of a branch of her roots shall one stand up in his estate. So this her is talking about Berenice, and out of a branch of Berenice's roots shall one stand up in his estate, which was her brother Ptolemy the third Euergetes, which shall come with an army, and shall enter into the fortress of the king of the north, and shall deal against him, and shall prevail, which is what we're about to read about. So Ptolemy declared war on Laodices's newly crowned son, Seleucus II, in 246 BC. He campaigned with great success, his forces possibly being commanded by Xanthippus of Lacedaemon, aka Xanthippus of Carthage, the mercenary general responsible for defeating a Roman army at Tunis, Clash Brigade in 255 BC. He won major victories over Seleucus in Syria and Anatolia, briefly occupied Antioch, and, as a recent cuneiform discovery proves, even reached Babylon. So here we have a map of the Seleucid Empire, their territory. And, we just read that Ptolemy, they did what? They conquered land here, Antioch in Syria. They conquered land in Anatolia, which is up here. You have Pontus, Cappadocia, Cilicia, the areas of Asia Minor. And they even made their way all the way over here to Babylon. So what is this showing us? We're going back to Daniel 11:7. It's showing us that Ptolemy III, he did what? He entered into the fortress of the king of the north and, to deal against them, which is what we read. And shall enter into the fortress of the king of the north and shall deal against them. And that fortress was the Seleucid territory. Then it goes on to say, and shall deal against them and shall prevail. Because not only, did Ptolemy III, he won this war, but their win was almost flawless. Babylon, okay. These victories were marred by the loss of the Cyclades to Antigonus Gonatas in the Battle of Andros. Seleucus had his own difficulties. His domineering mother asked him to grant co-regency to his younger brother, Antiochus Hyrax, as well as rule over Seleucid territories in Anatolia. Antiochus promptly declared independence, undermining Seleucus' efforts to defend against Ptolemy. So here it is. Seleucus II, he already has a huge headache trying to deal with this war against Ptolemy III. And then here's his mother. Oh, you have to, be nice to your little brother. You have to, give him some land too. So what he does is he gives his brother Antiochus Hyrax land. And guess what his brother does? Declared independency. So his brother basically just, appreciate the land, but yeah, that's your problem. I'm not dealing with that. So now this sets Seleucus II back because he just lost land. So now he's, it's just like it's set him back. Because he needs as much land as he has. He's in war right now. But now he just lost a big chunk to his brother who's not even trying to help. He probably thought, okay, I'm going to give his brother his land. Then we come together and, but nah, his brother was just like, yeah, you can deal with that. I'm over here doing my own thing. Okay, continuing reading. In exchange for peace, in 241 BC, Ptolemy was awarded new territories on the northern coast of Syria, including Seleucia, Pieria, the port of Antioch. The Ptolemaic kingdom was at the height of its power, and later on, when we go into the Fourth Syrian War, we find out this port right here was very important in that war, because this port was like a huge, trade route for Antioch in Syria. All right, so one more read through Daniel 11:7. But out of a branch of her roots shall one stand up stout. It's like Daniel 11:7. But out of a branch of her roots shall one stand up in his estate, which was Ptolemy III Euergetes, which shall come with an army and shall enter into the fortress of the king of the north, which was Ptolemy III invading the Seleucid territory and going to war with Seleucus II, and shall deal against them, going into the war, the Laodicean War, the Third Syrian War, and shall prevail, right? Because he won the war, as we just read. So now, Daniel 11, verse 8, and shall also carry captives into Egypt their gods with their princes and with their precious vessels of silver and of gold, and he shall continue more years than the king of the north. So this is still talking about Ptolemy III. It says, and shall also carry captives into Egypt their gods and with their princes and with their precious vessels of silver and of gold. Now let's look into this word princes. Princes, and we see here that one of the definitions is what? A molten image, because it's basically going into those Egyptian idols, their gold, and their molten images and things of that nature that were taken out of Egypt by the past rulers, or the past conquerors of Egypt, that Ptolemy III had brought back to Egypt, which is why they called him Euergetes, or benefactor, because of that good deed that he had done. And he shall continue more years than the king of the north. Right, so looking back here, Seleucus II, who was the king of the north at this time, Seleucus II, Callinicus Pogan, when did he die? It says he died December 225 BC, right? And when did Ptolemy III die? November/December 222 BC. So Ptolemy III died 3 years after Seleucus II, which means that what? Going back, Ptolemy III, he continued more years than Seleucus II, who was king of the north, meaning he died after him. That's why it says continued more years. Daniel 11, verse 9, so the king of the south shall come into his kingdom and shall return into his own land, which is what we just read. He Ptolemy III, he returned back to his own land. So yeah, with that being said, next video we will go into that Fourth Syrian War and that port of Antioch, and how that was like a catalyst for that Fourth Syrian War. But that being said, I would like once more to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahweh Shai, and double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone. And I pray that this video was edifying in some way, shape, or form. And Shalom.